Fade in. Misty dawn light creeps over the Pennsylvania farmland near Gettysburg. Golden wheat sways gently. In the distance, Cemetery Ridge rises like a low wall against the horizon, dotted with stone fences and low earthworks. Union flags snap in the breeze. Closer, on Seminary Ridge, gray-clad figures move like shadows, cannons being positioned, men checking cartridges. The camera lingers on one figure, tall, broad-shouldered, bearded, staring fixedly at the distant ridge. James Longstreet. His face is grim, almost haunted. It is the morning of July 3rd, 1863, the third day of battle. The air still reeks of black powder and blood from the day before. Over 50,000 men have already fallen in this place that nobody planned to fight over. And now the Confederate commander, Robert E. Lee, has decided on one final massive blow against the Union center. A direct frontal assault across open fields, straight into the teeth of the Federal guns. But his second-in-command, the man he calls his old war horse, knows better. Longstreet has seen this kind of ground before. He has watched men die charging fortified lines at Fredericksburg. He has studied maps, walked the terrain, counted the odds. He believes, knows, that what Lee is ordering will be slaughter. He says so repeatedly, urgently. Lee listens. Lee nods. Lee orders it anyway. This is the story of what James Longstreet knew before Pickett's charge, and why no one listened. Body James Longstreet wasn't born to be a legend. He came up the hard way. South Carolina roots, Georgia upbringing, West Point class of 1842. He fought in Mexico, took a wound storming Chapultepec Castle. When secession came, he didn't hesitate. He resigned his U.S. commission and went south. Rose fast, earned trust. At First Manassas, he held the line. At Williamsburg, 7 Pines, the 7 days, he was steady when others wavered. Stonewall Jackson got the glory for bold strokes. Longstreet got the nickname Old Pete from his soldiers and my war horse from Lee because he could be counted on to deliver when the plan called for grit, not flash. His philosophy was simple, almost modern. Fight on the defensive when you can. Make the enemy come to you across open ground. Bleed him with artillery and rifles from cover. Then, when he's spent, counterpunch. It worked brilliantly at Fredericksburg in December '62. Burnside's Union boys charged Marye's Heights again and again. Longstreet's men, dug in behind a stone wall, mowed them down. Over 12,000 Federal casualties. Confederate losses? A fraction. Longstreet proved his point. The rifle and the Minié ball had changed war. Frontal assaults against prepared positions were suicide. Lee knew this. Lee respected it. Their partnership was the backbone of the Army of Northern Virginia. After Jackson's death at Chancellorsville in May '63, Longstreet became Lee's indispensable man, the senior lieutenant general, commander of the First Corps. By summer 1863, the Confederacy was gasping. The blockade choked ports. Food was scarce. Morale flickered. Lee proposed the boldest gamble yet. Take the war north. Invade Pennsylvania. Live off northern farms. Threaten Washington. Force Lincoln to the table. Or draw the Army of the Potomac into open country and destroy it. The campaign started well. Ewell's corps cleared Winchester. Stuart's cavalry rode circles, but then came the fog of war. Stuart vanished on a joyride. Confederate scouts clashed with Union cavalry under John Buford west of Gettysburg on July 1st. What began as a skirmish exploded. By nightfall, the Confederates held the town, but the Union had fallen back to high ground south, Cemetery Hill, Culp's Hill, Cemetery Ridge. A fishhook line, strong and growing stronger by the hour. Lee arrived that evening, saw the position, decided to stay and fight. Longstreet arrived late, tired from a long march. He took one look at the Union line and urged retreat. Swing southeast, get between Meade and Washington. Force the Federals to attack on ground of Confederate choosing. Lee refused. The enemy is there, he said simply, and I am going to strike him. July 2nd became a brutal piecemeal slugfest. Longstreet protested again. He wanted to wait for Pickett's fresh division still miles away. Lee overruled him, ordered the attack on the Union left. Longstreet delayed as long as he dared, hoping Lee would reconsider. He didn't. When the assault finally went in around 4 p.m., Hood's and McLaws' divisions hammered into Devil's Den, the wheat field, the peach orchard. Fierce, confused fighting. Hood wounded early. Little Round Top nearly lost, saved by desperate Union stands under Chamberlain and others. Longstreet's men gained ground, bloodily, but couldn't break the line. On the other end, Ewell's attacks on Culp's Hill stalled. Night fell on another stalemate. Heavy casualties. The Union line bent but unbroken. July 3rd dawned quiet. Eerily so. Lee met with his commanders. The plan: renew pressure on both flanks, but the main effort would be a massive frontal assault on the Union center. Pickett's fresh Virginians, joined by Pettigrew's and Trimble's battered divisions, about 12,500 men total, would march straight across 3/4 of a mile of open field under converging artillery and rifle fire, smash through at a spot called the Angle, roll up the Union line. Longstreet heard the plan. His stomach turned. He rode to Lee, spoke plainly, as only a trusted subordinate could. "General," he said, "I have been a soldier all my life. I have been with soldiers engaged in fights by couples, by squads, by companies, regiments, divisions, and armies, and should know as well as anyone what soldiers can do. It is my opinion that no 15,000 men ever arrayed for battle can take that position." Lee listened, then answered, "The enemy is there, and I am going to strike him." Longstreet tried again, pointed out the ground, wide, open, no cover. Union artillery on high ground could rake the advance. The Federals had had 2 days to dig in, reinforcements pouring in, ammunition low on the Confederate side after 2 days fighting. Lee was immovable. The center looked thin. Hancock's Second Corps had bled heavily on July 2nd. One good push, Lee believed, could crack it. Stuart's cavalry would swing around to hit the Union rear. Victory? Longstreet fell silent. He knew argument was useless. He walked away, found his artillery chief, young Colonel E. Porter Alexander, gave him the awful responsibility. "If the artillery fire does not have the effect to drive off the enemy or greatly demoralize him," Longstreet told Alexander, "so as to make our effort pretty certain, I would prefer that you should not advise General Pickett to make the charge. I would stop Pickett now, but that General Lee has ordered it and expects it." Alexander understood. He later wrote that Longstreet's face was full of trouble. The colonel watched the batteries open at 1 p.m., a thunderous barrage meant to soften the Union line. Smoke blanketed the valley. Shells screamed, but the range was long. Many rounds overshot. Union guns answered fiercely. The Confederate barrage, meant to last hours, ran low on ammunition too soon. Alexander sent word to Pickett. The moment had come. Pickett, eager, formed his men, Virginia flags uncased. Bands played. The long gray line stepped off, Pickett on horseback, hat in hand, waving encouragement. Longstreet watched from a low rise, could barely bring himself to look. When Pickett rode up for final orders, Longstreet could not speak. He could only nod, once. The charge began at about 3 p.m., 12,500 men in a mile-wide front. They crossed the Emmitsburg Road under fire. Canister tore gaps. Shells burst overhead. Men fell by the score. Still they came on, dressed ranks, colors high. "Remember old Virginia?" Pickett shouted. Halfway, the storm intensified. Union artillery from Cemetery Ridge and Little Round Top enfiladed. Men dropped in windrows. The line closed up, contracted toward the center, like a funnel. Longstreet rode along the rear, trying to push supports forward, but the reserves were thin. Pettigrew's men on the left faltered first, Green troops, exhausted from July 1st. Trimble's followed. Only Pickett's Virginians reached the stone wall at the Angle. Armistead's brigade breached it. Lewis Armistead himself, hat on sword point, crossed the wall touched a Union gun, fell mortally wounded. For a moment, the high water mark. Then Union reinforcements rushed in, hand to hand, bayonets. The gray tide broke, recoiled. Pickett's division lost over half its strength in under an hour. The whole assault, perhaps 6,000 casualties. Longstreet sat on his horse, hat pulled low. A staff officer later said he looked like a man who had seen his own funeral. When Lee rode up afterward, asking him to rally the survivors, Longstreet replied wearily, "General, I am spent. There are no troops of mine on this part of the field." Pickett, shattered, met Lee later. Lee told him to form his division. Pickett answered, "General Lee, I have no division now." In the years after, the lost cause myth grew. Longstreet became the scapegoat. Jubal Early and others accused him of sullen disobedience, of delaying on July 2nd, of half-hearted effort on July 3rd. They said he lost the war by doubting Lee. But read Longstreet's own words, from his memoirs, from private letters. He never denied his duty. He executed orders, but he had warned, repeatedly, bluntly, because he saw what was coming. He wrote later, "That day at Gettysburg was the sorest and saddest reflection of my life, for many years." He lived with it. After the war, when others romanticized Lee, Longstreet spoke plain truth. The attack was hopeless. The ground was wrong. The numbers insufficient. The plan flawed. Historians today largely agree. Gettysburg wasn't lost by Longstreet. It was lost by Lee's decision to fight there at all, then to press frontal assaults against strengthening defenses. Longstreet's instincts were right. Defensive warfare had become dominant. The rifle musket and rifled artillery punished attackers. He knew it. Lee, brilliant in so many ways, did not fully adapt. Pickett's charge endures as a symbol. Of courage, yes, but also of tragic waste. Brave men marched into fire because orders demanded it, because one general's vision overrode another's warning. James Longstreet knew. He pleaded. No one listened. And the fields of Gettysburg still whisper the cost.